Hey everybody, it's Aaron here with Get Your Geek On, and welcome to basically a little bonus video or episode where we are going to have an interview. Why don't you just introduce yourself, sir, right off the bat, so you can talk about all of your stuff real quick?
Sure. My name is Paul Gomez. I'm a brand new writer and creator of comics. In the past 8 months, I put out three brand new comics, including my first one, which was PTSD. My second one was Boo Circus Mystery, and my third one's Cryptic Haze. And I'm currently on Kickstarter with my fourth, which is Boo Circus Mysteries issue 2.
Ooh, so that's him, guys. So now I guess, like I said, we wanted to have some more content for everybody and just be able to talk and make everything just friendly as possible, I guess. I like to just chill with these interviews, man. So tell me a bit about yourself. I mean, obviously you're into comics is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I was into comics since I was a young kid. Back and forth into comics. One that really hit me whenever I was about a teenager was X-Men, and I kind of just fell in love with them. Of course, through the years, it's been back and forth where I would be into comics, out of comics, into comics. But basically, whenever this pandemic hit, I was let go from my job. My kids were out of school. I had been introducing my kids to comics, and so I wanted to motivate them to read and stuff and write. So we decided to write some stories, and it just kind of went like a roller coaster from there.
That's cool. Hey, that works. I got my kiddo into comics. I'm a Spider-Man fan. So
Yeah.
she was like, okay, Spider-Man's cool. And then she found Ghost Spider or Spider-Gwen. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can live with that. It's still a spider, so I will stick with that.
So I had about six kids, and two of them were
Oh,
twins. They were 13 at the time that I started introducing them, and one of them's huge into to Miles Morales. And
oh,
I'm like, I can understand that. They're kind of getting into the newer Spider-Man,
mhm.
Spider-Verse, and all that good stuff, which is great as long as they're reading.
Exactly. That's kind of what I've been pushing for mine too. She just I got her to read the was it Beast Boy and the Raven trades that
Right.
they did a little while back. So she's read all of those now, and now she's on to the new Nightmare Before Christmas book. Actually, I was like,
Oh
okay.
yeah.
So okay, so let's talk about your current one. So you're doing the Bougie Circus issue 2. What's the series about? What's the first one about, I guess?
So this is a story that me and my kids started writing, and they really wanted to do something like Harry Potter kind of thing. And I was like, Harry Potter's been done. So we started throwing out ideas, and it's like, why not do a circus background?
Ooh.
And it basically they wanted to do a story with an ensemble cast. So that's what this is. It's basically three apprentices, including Zahara, who's a tiger trainer. You got Lance, who's the ringmaster, and then Luke, who's kind of trying to figure out what he's going to be in it all.
Mhm.
This is going to be a 12 issue when it's all said and done. The first issue was really the introduction, and it's a two-parter. So that was an introduction, and the second issue kind of wraps it all up with a nice bow at the end, and
Ooh.
kind of shows you some extra arcs that are gonna go on, but it
Mhm.
really wraps up that first story really nice and neat.
Nice. So are you so no, you say wraps it up, or is there going to be any more for this series, or is this kind of the last one you're going to do?
No, this is gonna be 12 issues.
Okay.
So yeah, the way I figured it, I wanted to show my writing range. So whenever
Mhm.
I decided we decided on Boo Circus Mysteries, this was going to be a 12 issue series. The
Okay.
first issue was 33 pages, and most of the regular issues are probably going to be 32. The only reason it was 33 was because we had to wrap something up at the very end, and so we added a page.
Okay.
And, my other stories are 22 pages each, and PTSD was a one shot, and Cryptic Haze is three issues. But with this one, it's definitely going to be 12 issues when it's all said and done. And like I said, the issue 1 and 2 of Boo Circus Mystery are really that big introduction issue. I wanted to
Mhm.
show a lot of the people and show them how the stories were going to be, introducing them to the suspects way before you get there. I was a big
Yeah.
fan of like Perry Mason, and I loved it, but they always showed that person who did it at that very end, and I was like,
Yes.
how could I have known? So
Mhm.
in Bushibu, I really want to emphasize the fact that I'm gonna show you the suspects
Right.
early on, and that was the real conclave of issue 1 going into 2.
I can see that's got to be fun. So it's kind of like a almost like a murder mystery kind of feel to it. From what you said,
Yeah.
Perry Mason.
Yeah.
My mom loves watching that stuff too.
Right.
I've watched a little bit, but not as much.
I tell people it's kind of like Scooby-Doo meets Criminal Minds, if you will.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Now you caught my attention.
Because it's a little bit more mature than Scooby-Doo, and you got serial killers and psychopaths a little bit. And I definitely wanted to aim it towards teenagers and adults as opposed to younger kids. Because when we were doing the brainstorming, it was like that was probably their one complaint about comics was that they were aimed more towards younger kids. And they felt like it wasn't exactly on their level. So I was aiming for most of my comics to be that age range, a little bit higher up and a little bit, more focused on them.
That makes sense. I mean, I agree. There's a lot of these ones now. They're trying to get that younger generation to come in, read that stuff. We don't have, I fell in love, I think, with comics when I was young too. But then what got me back into it was actually Garth Ennis on his Punisher Max run. And when he got bloody, I was like, oh my God, this is the Punisher.
And that's one thing I felt when we were all doing this. It was like a lot of the comics are aimed for the kids and trying to get those in. But, I was a teenager whenever I really fell in love with comics. So it's like, why not aim for the teenagers and adults? And adults are the really ones that buy it. Yeah. So if you're giving them something that they can read and they can share with their teenage kids, that's really, I think, the bridge that needs to be hit as opposed to that all ages kind of thing. And don't get me wrong, because I think there's tons of those all ages books out there and I love them to death. But, I really think people are missing that point of hitting those teenagers.
I could only read My Little Pony so much. I mean, because I have
Power Rangers, Tron.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. And don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they're fun to read. I mean, I grew up on Power Rangers. I mean, I remember watching them, was the early 90s when it came out. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I love this stuff. And now it's like, I can only watch so much, kid, because now it's so corny, and I see it.
and that's what my kids were saying, because most of them were teenagers when we started writing it. And right now, my twins are about 14 going on 15. And they were like, most of this stuff's a little corny. And it's like, why isn't it aimed towards me? And I was like, that's where we were going with our comics.
And so, okay, so how did you get, because I know you said like Harry Potter, how did y'all end up on a circus though? Like, that's kind of an interesting twist to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, they threw out that was like one of their first ideas. So let's do something Harry Potter. And I'm like, magic's done a lot. Right. I mean, way out there. And the second thing they threw out there, I remember, was vampires and supernatural stuff. And I'm like, I'd love to do that, but that's thrown out there a lot too. And I know we had watched The Greatest Showman, and we had watched a show on Nickelodeon. I forget what it was called. But it had a circus themed background. And I was like, why don't we do something circus themed? But, that Scooby-Doo and Criminal Minds kind of feel kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but without the vampires. And then it just kind of went from there. They started throwing out characters and, a tiger trainer, because we got 2 white tigers in here, and they fell in love with that. And we were talking about a person who gets shot out as a cannonball, and my kids were like loving it. And I was like, all the characters you can do from a circus, and you don't see that many in cartoons, comics, or movies. Why not?
Yeah.
And that's really how we landed on Bougie Boo Circus Mysteries.
That's really cool. So I also have to ask, where did you get the name Bougie Boo?
So now, having said, I was doing this with my kids in the pandemic. We all went in a room, and I had 6 kids. My youngest was about 4 at the time, and he used to run around going, bushy, bushy, boom, and kind of run into all the other kids while we were working. And we were trying to think of a name, and we were thinking of Scooby-Doo, and whenever he was going Bougie Boo, well, we kind of combined it together and came up with Bougie Boo Circus Mysteries.
I like that. So this really is like a family comic. Like all of y'all are in this, even the baby at this point.
Even the baby, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So who's doing the artwork? Like, are you drawing it, or are the kids drawing it? Like, how's that going?
So at first, when we were doing this, again, this was kind of a morale builder that we were originally going to do. And we were going to do all the art and do everything ourselves and just do it as a home project. But I met with an artist at a local comic book store. His name's Mike Henson, and I owe him a great deal. He does Disputed Territories, and I sat down with him. He gave me a lot of his time, and he's like, if you really want to elevate this to be a comic book that goes on shelves, here's the kind of steps that you need to take. So we went out and I got an editor who was an amazing editor. And he started showing me some art details, and I went out there and started looking at different artists. It's Gabriel Azura and
Hmm.
Brian Roll. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Gabriel Rowland and Brian Azura.
Okay.
They're my art team, and they're my interior artists, and they're amazing, amazing at it. It looks beautiful. It definitely elevated it, and I figured if I was gonna charge anybody some money for this, I wanted it to be well worth every
Hmm.
penny that you spent on it. So I went and found an art team that was off the charts. If you even see a page or two of this, it is, I mean, beautiful,
I mean, I'm looking
beautiful
at
art.
you have it on Kickstarter, like we said, which link will be in the
Yeah,
description. And guys, if you could see this right now, it's
yeah,
cool looking.
yeah. And
It
one of my favorite pages is definitely the introductions of the tigers right there.
Oh, I love
Because
that.
those white
I
tigers, I
need that
mean,
now.
I'm not sure if you're just hearing this, but if you look at the page where it introduces the white tigers, and they're a huge character in this book, they are beautiful,
Hmm.
amazing, and I owe that to the artists.
That's so cool. I mean, it is beautiful. I love how it looks. I mean, like I said, on your Kickstarter, I saw some of the cells right there, and
Yeah,
it I like the more like realistic look to comics. I don't like
yeah,
when it's too, I guess, too bright, because it's
right.
like, that the world's not that bright really. Like I
Now,
like the darker tones to it.
so most of my books were a little bit darker and heavier because they were a little bit darker stories. With
Hmm.
this, even though we were doing again kind of Criminal Minds ish, we wanted those colors to pop because it was a
Yeah.
circus background, and we wanted to attract the eye. I fell in love with Stray Dogs.
Hmm.
And you first see Stray Dogs and you think animated cell kind of thing and nice little wholesome, and then you get into that serial killer mentality of it. And I'm like,
Yes.
that's what I wanted for this. That's exactly what I wanted. My kids loved it. I loved it. And I was like, that's where we're gonna go with Bushy Boo Circus Mystery.
That's freaking amazing, dude. I love it. Like I said, I'm loving the look of it. I'm loving the feel, like this, the whole family getting together to
Yeah.
essentially make a comic book,
Yeah.
and that's now become not just your job, but like a way to bond with your family. Like you said, you got 6 kids, dude. Like
Oh
that's a lot.
yeah.
I want to strangle
Yeah.
mine half the time, so I can imagine like six. I'm like,
Yeah. And then going to the conventions, it's one of the greatest things.
mhm.
I actually take my son to the convention
Oh,
and he
nice.
dresses like one of the characters. That's Lance's outfit right there.
That's
We actually
awesome.
we actually bought the outfit before he got drawn, and
Yeah,
we showed the artist and we're like, look, this is what we want Lance to look like, because my twins are gonna be out there
promoting.
basically
Yeah,
being Lance.
that's awesome. So they really are all in at this point
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
That's
they love it.
awesome.
They go out there and show their friends. They go to the comic book stores with me, and they sell more than I do. So I
Really?
mean, it's been great. Yeah, because I one of the things I wanted to do is teach them, to talk to people.
Hmm.
I know a lot of kids nowadays, they're kind of scared to go out there and say, hey, I want this, or hey, I want to buy that. Well,
Yeah.
one of the things I wanted to do was teach my kids to go out there and convey to the store owners, hey, we're selling this and this
Hmm.
is the price. Let's talk and see if we can make a deal, kind of thing.
Exactly. No, and I feel you on that because I'm trying to get mine to get out of her little bubble like that
Right.
too. So that's the perfect way. I use bowling because I'm a bowler. So
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, go talk to the league secretary. She knows everybody. So like, you talk to secretary, you talk to this. So I
Yeah.
feel
You
you
go
on
get
that
your
one.
shoes, you go get your
Hmm.
drink. As long as I'm around, you're going to be good. But in a few years, I won't be. So you need to learn
Hmm.
it now. Yeah.
Exactly. So, if anyone that doesn't have the first issue, where can they find the first issue of this, of the Bougie Boo Circus?
Well, now it is on Kickstarter along with that second issue. We have special deals if you buy both. We've got currently a Kickstarter exclusive right now that I'm really proud to promote, because it also has another one of my stories called uh, I'm sorry, Cherry Blossom, which is my first romantic story that I wrote, but it's got
Oh.
some specials in it as well. And like I said, it's Kickstarter exclusive, only
Hmm.
limited to however many get bought on Kickstarter. But
Okay.
we also do have issue one up there for sale. And if you don't happen to catch it on Kickstarter, we are on chartercomics.com, and they carry us as well.
Perfect. And I'll make sure we have all your links in our description so that way you can just click on it, guys, and go check it out. So last question, since you said you
Yeah.
started on comics, who was your favorite comic book character to read?
Oh, Bishop was my first original.
Ooh.
I found this X-Men annual, and in the back of it, it had a story of his, and he really pulled me into that X-Men world. And then
Mhm.
after that, it was like Scott, and then like, just Forge. I just kind of snowballed from there.
Kind of goes
Yeah.
everywhere after that. I
Yeah.
feel you on that. That's cool though. I love the X-Men. I don't know about Scott though. I have issues with Scott
Oh
sometimes.
well, yeah. Nowadays, I think there's a lot of issues with Scott, but back then, he was that fearless leader kind of guy, and
Yep.
I loved it. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I went into Valiant and Image and
Hmm.
DC. I love Robin, like all the
Yes.
different Robins. Is like
They're all
so
amazing.
great.
I
Yeah,
love it. Tim Drake, I think, is still my favorite out of all of
yeah.
them. I love Dick, but I'm
It,
like, I love Tim is just my boy.
and then the whole death in the family thing.
Oh,
Whenever I was that young, it just kind of wow.
it
Yeah,
hits because it's like,
yeah,
oh, you actually, he's dead.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So, well, I do thank you, Paul, for being here with us. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your time. And everyone, please go check out his Kickstarter. Go fund it if you can, or at least share it so that way he can get more of it out there. And, do what you can to help out local and small independent guys out there who are making these comics and with their family, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you.
So, definitely go check that out, guys. Again, all the links in the description. I'm Aaron. That's Paul. And thank you guys for listening and stay geeky and get your geek on, guys.